guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today my question to you is, what is a season or series of Doctor Who that you feel like gets underappreciated, that kind of passes unnoticed, and that should get more attention from the fandom? A series that, you know, you're always like, these people just don't get it, this season's great, I don't know why I don't hear more about it. For me, I'm going to talk about Season 4 of Classic Doctor Who, which of course is William Hartnell's final couple stories as the first Doctor, and of course the introduction of Patrick Troughton as the second Doctor, with most of the season being Troughton's season. Now, I think part of the reason this season doesn't get discussed enough and may be overlooked is because it is one of the 60 seasons that's heavily affected by missing episodes. Matter of fact, it's the most affected by missing episodes of all of the 60 seasons. Season 4 has, excuse me, 43 episodes this season. Only 10 of those episodes survive. Only 10 of them have the actual surviving episodes intact. And 3 of those are 10th Planet, which of course are Hartnell episodes. So of the 35 episodes that make up Troughton episodes this season, only 7 of those episodes exist, with none of Troughton's stories being more than half complete. He has 2 stories that are half complete, and then all of the rest of the stories are either mostly missing or completely missing. So we'll go through and I'll talk about why I love Season 4. It's my favorite season of the 60s, actually. I love Season 4 a lot. We start off with the Smugglers. I love the Smugglers. Now, I can understand some people having issues with the Smugglers because it hasn't been animated yet. Some people, not everyone can do telesnap recons, although I feel like the telesnap recon for Smugglers is good. Not everybody can jive with telesnap recons. I'm sure someone who's 18 years old, 21 years old is probably going to struggle with telesnap recons for Season 4. Not everybody that age, but a large majority of people, I understand that. And the novelization is a great alternative, but again, telling someone, hey, this one's missing, you'll have to read it, could put some people off. Totally get that. Also, before I continue on, we do need to address the fact that while most of this season has been animated now, with of the 9 stories that make up this season, 7 of them have been completed with animation. Only 2 stories have not been completed with animation, that being the Smugglers and the Highlanders. I do think we need to point out that the animations are not for everybody. I like the animations to varying degrees, depending on the animation. I tend to like Season 4's animations a lot, for the most part. But some animations don't work for everybody, or some people prefer maybe the older animations and not the newer ones. I know one of my fellow Who-tubers who watches my channel, I watch his channel, Cody. I know Cody does not really care for the animations that much. I think he likes some of the older ones, like the Invasion and the Moon Base. I think he enjoys those well enough. I'm not sure what he thinks of 10th Planet and Reign of Terror. You have to tell me what you think of 10th Planet and Reign of Terror. But I think he likes a couple of the older ones, but pretty much the newer ones. I'd say anything after Power, I don't know if he really gets into. I seem to recall him mentioning in a video that he enjoyed the special edition of Power. I'm not sure what he thinks of Moonbase. Not Moonbase. I know he likes Moonbase. Macroterra. I'm curious what he thinks of Macroterra. But I know he tends not to like a lot of the more recent animations. And I feel like that is a opinion that other Doctor Who fans share, where the animations just don't cut it for them by and large. And again, that can make this season very hard to approach for them, with so much of it being animated material. And even with the animations, where someone like me who likes the animations, understanding that the animations are never going to be able to recapture that magic that Troughton has on screen. Troughton is such a good physical actor. I mean, he's a good actor in general, but he's such a good physical actor. What he does with his body language, what he does with his facial expressions, that the animations are never going to 100% capture that. I think Macroterra probably comes the closest, Moonbase and Macroterra, but none of them are going to completely get that. And I think you really only have to look at Evil of the Daleks to see that. The surviving episode 2 of Evil of the Daleks is so phenomenally good, and part of that is just down to Troughton. Not all of it, but part of that is down to Troughton's performance. And the animation, if you watch the animated episode 2, just doesn't live up to that, despite liking the animation a lot for Evil of the Daleks. It's one of the better animations. The animated episode 2 does not live up to the surviving episode 2. And it just makes you wish that more of not only Evil of the Daleks, but more of season 4 existed. Just to have at least one story complete from this season would be nice. This is the one season in the 60s, and Doctor Who in general, where not a single story is complete with existing episodes. They've had to be completed with animation. Going back to the Smugglers, I think it's a good story. It's a nice pirate story in the past. I really enjoy it. I liked reading it. I like watching the recon. I could go back and rewatch the recon. But again, I get that's not for everybody. Then we have 10th Planet. Very famous story. Introduction of the Cybermen. The very first regeneration, with the first Doctor regenerating into the second Doctor. Nice Antarctic atmosphere. Nice base under siege story. Hampered a little bit by its second half, with Hartnell being sick for episode 3 and not really being in it, and of course episode 4 being missing, and it being such a pivotal, vital episode of Doctor Who, just historically, being missing is very frustrating. The animation for it's nice, it's very good, but it's still frustrating coming off the 3 surviving episodes. It's still a good story. It's not my favorite Cybermen story, but it's a 60s Cybermen story, so you know it's going to be some level of good. They all are. And then we move into Power of the Daleks, which is arguably the best Dalek story ever made. It's really hard for me to pick between Power, Genesis, and Dalek from the modern series. They're all 3 phenomenally good Dalek stories, good Doctor Who stories. Power does a really good job of introducing Troughton, selling you on Troughton, selling you that this is still the Doctor while being a very different character, watching our companions adjust to him, and how you really get the dynamic of the fandom of people who accept him quicker and people who wouldn't accept him as quickly with Ben and Polly, with Polly being far more accepting of him as the Doctor and Ben a little more untrusting and a little more skeptical. You really get that right there built into the two of them. You have a wonderful guest cast. The animation looks really good. Even the 2016 one I liked, but the 2020 one I do think is better. That is my preferred way to watch now. I like the character of Lesterson. I like the Daleks in it. And I really like how well David Whittaker writes the Daleks. I feel like there's not a single writer out there that gets the Daleks better than David Whittaker. Maybe the guy who wrote Dalek and Jubilee. But David Whittaker, I think, gets them the best. Even Terry Nation, I don't think, gets the Daleks as well as David Whittaker gets the Daleks. It's a phenomenally good story and a great post-regeneration story. Then you move into the Highlanders. Very enjoyable, very humorous story, actually. Again, this is one where all 4 of the episodes are missing. It has not been animated yet, so you're either going to have to sit through the recon, which I find the recon for it very enjoyable. But again, I know that's not for everybody. Or you're going to have to read the novelization, which I've also done. Again, very enjoyable read. Again, maybe a hard sell to a younger person when they're like, oh yeah, Jamie, he's popular. I want to see his first story. Well, we can watch this Telestat recon, or you can read the book. They might be like, eh. And that's fair. I get that. I get that having to read it or having to watch it in Telestat recon could put some people off. And I think that's a strong reason why this season could be overlooked in conversation. I think people would much rather Troughton's first season in the collection range be season 5 or season 6, which I would agree, even though I prefer season 4, mainly because seasons 5 and 6 have more existing episodes. They have much fuller seasons. But the Highlanders is a good story, a very enjoyable story, very humorous story, and a great introduction for Jamie. Then we move into, excuse me, The Underwater Menace, which is enjoyable. And I think it's crazy that you have to get to episode 2 of The Underwater Menace to have the first surviving Troughton episode. You've gone through all of Power of the Daleks missing, all of the Highlanders missing, episode 1 of Underwater Menace missing, to finally get to an existing Troughton episode, which we just got a little over a decade ago. Well, I guess about 2011. And I like episode 2. I actually like Underwater Menace. Underwater Menace is definitely a bit of a filler story. It's a little bit silly. And episode 3 is a little uninteresting. Although I love the fish design. The fish design looks really iconic. But I enjoy it because I knew going into Underwater Menace that it wasn't exactly the Caves of Androzani or something here. It was just, kind of a B tier, C tier story, and I was able to appreciate it for what it is, knowing that going in. I feel like the animation for it is fine. I don't know why they changed some of the details for the characters, like making the fish people look different, making the king look different. When half the story existed, I think that's, well, quite honestly, an incredibly stupid thing to do. 1, because half the story exists. 2, because the design of the fish people is probably the most iconic part of the story, so why change that? And I understand that for most of the or all of the animations now, they treat the animations as a brand new project, so they're not trying to make it match existing episodes. They treat it as a brand new production. But when you have a story that literally half of it still exists, it just strikes me as an incredibly stupid, prideful, egotistical thing to do. Now, I, honestly enough, don't have a problem switching between the animation and the live-action episodes, like some people might, because some of the designs are different. For some reason, it still doesn't bother me. When I watched Underwater Menace, I watched it with the black and white animated episodes 1 through 4, with the surviving episodes 2 and 3, and I managed to switch between them pretty seamlessly. So despite me complaining about the changes, they didn't affect my watch through like they do some other animations, like the Abominable Snowmen, where I can't watch the surviving episode 2 unless I'm watching it just by itself. I can't watch it in place of the animated episode 2 if I'm watching the whole story. It's too jarring. Whereas here it wasn't, and again, that's probably part of the reason why I enjoyed the Underwater Menace. I don't even understand why they animated episodes 2 and 3. Half the story exists. I'm never going to watch the animated episodes 2 and 3 unless it's for, like, YouTube purposes. Like, say I do a YouTube video where I just watch all 4 animated episodes just as a different way to view the story. I could see that happening. But my preferred way of watching for enjoyment's always going to be animated episode 1 in black and white, surviving episode 2, surviving episode 3, animated episode 4 in black and white. That's going to be my default way to go. Then you have the moon base, which is arguably the best animation we've had yet. The moon base is fantastic. It's that old school animation from Planet 55. This is where they had really perfected their craft. The character likenesses have never been reached here. The characters look like the characters, the main cast, the guest cast. The fluidity of movement is fantastic. And the characters tend to be very expressive. And the animation blends in with the live action pretty well, because you go from an animated episode to a surviving episode, to an animated episode to a surviving episode, and it never really feels that jarring. So that's really impressive too. Matter of fact, some of the shots in the animation look better than the shots in the live action episode, like spaceships landing from the Cybermen. And then I like the moon base. I think it's a better version of the 10th Planet. It is kind of a rehash of the 10th Planet script, a base under siege story, but I do enjoy this story better. Maybe part of it's because I like Troughton more, and I like Troughton having his famous "There are some corners of the universe which have bred the most terrible things" speech. I love that speech. I feel like this could be Troughton's best performance in the role, because the 2 surviving episodes he just nails it, and even his voice in the missing episodes is good. But I would love for more of the moon base to be found. Even if it's just 1 more episode, I would absolutely love that. And then the season 2 cliffhanger is probably one of my favorite cliffhangers in the show. Did they search in here? Did they search in here? And a lot of that is down to Troughton's performance and what he's doing with his face. Because you can see the exact second when he realizes. When you're watching that episode, you can see that look on his face when that little light bulb goes off in his head. And he's, man, they said, he knows, and he's pulling him away, and he's talking quietly, but he's like yelling quietly, "Did they search in here?" So it's like his his voice is raising while still being quiet. No. He's like, it's just perfect acting from Troughton. Perfect acting from Troughton. And then after that, we move into the Macroterra, which the Macroterra, this is the story that really benefits, I think, more than any other story from its animation. The animation here, again, is arguably the best one we've ever gotten. The two best animations we've ever gotten, I maintain, are the Moonbase and the Macroterra. And it's amazing to me that it's consecutive stories, with the Moonbase being the best of the old style of animations and Macroterra being the best of the post-Power, more modern style animations. I really wish they'd get Sun and Moon Studios back. This could be a very B-tier story, and I think Macroterra was always considered a very B-tier filler story, but the animation really makes it pop, and I feel like, much like Enemy of the World being rediscovered, I feel like the animation has raised the bar on it to where it has a bit of a better reputation than it used to. The animation looks really good. The characters, I love the way they move, because they move like real people, and the facial expressions are very spot on. This is definitely one of those animations where I feel like Troughton moves like Troughton, which is not an easy thing to do. I love the fluidity of movement, because sometimes the movement can look a little choppy, even on animations after this. Fury from the Deep being a good example, where they almost look like South Park characters at times, whereas here, there's a nice fluidity when they turn, and how like if one of them turns their head, their body moves with it too, so it feels more real and less like puppets on strings, which I really like. I like the choice to expand the area here. This doesn't always work. Like, it works to the detriment when they do it in Fury from the Deep, because it takes away part of the atmosphere and tension of the story. But it works in a story here, especially with all of the episodes missing, which, to be fair, Fury had that too. But with all of the episodes missing, you're not having to match anything. It expands on it. The face of basically what's basically Big Brother. It's a very Orwellian society here, very dystopian society. With it being that much broader face, does make it look more like the face itself is a character in the story looming over you, watching you, that the original production couldn't do. Plus, the redesigned macro and the animation are just more intimidating, more threatening than the pictures we see of the prop in the show and the little bit of surviving footage we get in the telesnaps. Because I have watched the telesnap recon of it, which is still enjoyable in its own right. But watching those scenes, like the first time they see the macra at night walking in the city and see the shadows hitting on it and the lights, the eyes glowing in the dark. And also the fact that this one is equally good in black and white and color. They're different viewing experiences, but they're both very good viewing experiences. I don't actually have a preference, it's just which one I'm in the mood for, but they're both phenomenally fun watches because of that. Macroterra, I would say, is probably the best animation because it's the only animation where if the surviving episodes were found, I'd still probably watch the animation more. I mean, I'd still want to see, of course, the found episodes so I could review them, so I could say I've seen them and to see them, but I feel like I'd rather watch the animated episodes because I like all the changes they make. I like, instead of Jamie finding the one guy's body, just finding the goggles. I like little stuff like that. I feel like the changes they make benefit the story. And that's the only story I can say that about, where even if they found the regular episodes, I think I'd rather watch the animation. That's the only Doctor Who story I can say that about. Then we move on to the Faceless Ones, which is probably the weakest of the season for me. I think it might be a little too long at 6 parts. Still enjoyable. It's not a bad story by any means. C tier, B tier, probably C tier. The surviving 2 episodes are good. And the animation does a really good job at matching the locations in the animation. They don't really get more kind of oversized with things until later in the story, where there's no surviving episodes it has to match, because the surviving episodes are episode 1 and episode 3. So they kind of wait until after episode 3 when they're in new locations to kind of expand on things a bit. And I think that works well. There's a couple little things that don't need to be there, like the wanted poster for the Masters. It's a little too fan servicey for me. I think the animation is still really good. It's a step down from Macroterra, but still very enjoyable. Troutman's head looks a little odd, like it's a little bigger, but it's a nitpick. And Jamie's face looks a little weird. But again, little nitpicks. I think the animation looks good. And it's just the story's just kind of middle of the road for me. And then you have Evil of the Daleks, which I think is a good 7-parter. I know some people might argue it's an episode too long. I could totally see that. I still think for the most part it fills out its 7 episodes well. Again, maybe an episode too long. I like the fact that it takes place in different places, because you have the first episode taking place in what was at the time contemporary Earth, and then episodes 2, 3, 4, and 5 or so, maybe even the beginning of 6, I forget, taking place in the past, in the 1800s. And then, of course, you have the last 2 episodes taking place on Skaro. So I like the change of location. I like the guest cast in this a lot. The Daleks are really good in this. I like that they actually get to go back to Skaro and that we get to see what at the time looked like the end of the Daleks, keeping in mind that this was the last Dalek story of the 60s. This was the last Dalek story we would get all the way until season 9 with Day of the Daleks. I liked meeting the Emperor Dalek. I liked all the stuff with the Dalek Factor. I feel like it utilizes its 7 episodes very well. It is, again, it's a David Whittaker Dalek story, and David Whittaker knew how to write the Daleks really well, I feel like. And that surviving episode 2 just looks so good. And it makes a good season finale as well. Evil of the Daleks is a really good season finale. Great introduction for Victoria as well. So I feel like this is a really strong season. I don't think it has any bad stories, with my least favorite probably being 10th Planet and Faceless Ones. And even those are very enjoyable C-tier stories. So for me, it's, 9 some level of good stories, with some of them just being, the creme de la creme, top of the crop, like Power of the Daleks and Macroterra being very enjoyable watches. So I feel like this one doesn't get talked about enough. And again, it's probably a lot of that's due to missing episodes. And a lot of that may be due to some people had just having trouble watching the episodes through available means. Whether listening to the audios, reading the books, watching telesnaps, or even just watching animations, they might not click with those alternate means. Because again, some people don't care for the animations. Or they like some of the animations, but not others. And some people just can't handle telesnap recons. Like, I never want to go through the Space Pirates recon again, because that just gets progressively harder to sit through. I can't stand the Space Pirates recon. Nothing against the people that made it. It's just there were no telesnaps. They don't have much to work with, so you see a lot of the same pictures over and over and over, and it's just, at 6 parts, it's hard going. The novelization of Space Pirates is much better. Whereas I feel like the telesnap recons that you really have to go through here for something especially like Smugglers or Highlanders, I feel like those are good recons. I can see myself going through those again. I enjoy them. So yeah, I want to know, well, one, what you think of season 4, and also what season do you feel like just doesn't get talked about enough in Doctor Who? A season you're like, I don't understand why this season doesn't come up more. So comment down below. Let's talk about it. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button as well. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me on that. A Patreon, I should say. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons: Colin Coney, Sam Venning, Finn Perkins, Unknown289, and Androzani Major. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you'd like to send me to look at and review. I love getting fan mail. I also have a link to the Amazon wishlist and the Amazon UK wishlist down there as well. Most importantly, thank you for watching.